Hey there, I'm Sarah Subiata Bennett. Welcome to Let's Talk Local. Today I'm sitting down with Dallas City Council member Chad West, who's up for re-election this May. We're tackling some of the biggest and sometimes controversial issues shaping up this year's city council race, from parking minimums and housing reform to public safety. But that's not all. Chad is also facing an investigation by the Texas Ethics Commission over questionable campaign spending, and we're not shying away from that conversation. After the interview, we're hitting the town with Chad to check out some of his favorite Oak Cliff hangouts. So stick around because this episode has a little bit of everything. Let's get into it. So I just wanted to say, I am so grateful that Chad West is here with us today. I have received some absolute hate texts, messages about giving certain people platforms, and I'm just absolutely sick of it because you have always been very gracious, and you're not someone who's going to come here and not be open. And on the contrary, you have been the person that has said, ask me anything. Nothing is off the table. I am willing to discuss anything and everything and put my most raw self out there, which is what a lot of people aren't willing to do.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, in this political world that we're in, It's unfortunate that a lot more people don't sit down and just have conversations.
Correct.
And I think a lot of things could be worked out with a phone call or a conversation versus, an attack on social media.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's just actually talk about things and see where we can come together. And most of the time I found I'm much more aligned with someone than separate from them, And so I appreciate you inviting me on here, even though we may not always agree on everything. I'm just used to have the conversation and talk about, ways to make the city better. I think that's one thing we can agree on is we both want to live in a city that's safe, where there's opportunity for all, and it's dynamic and fun and cool. I think Dallas is.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And while I probably think that there's more room for improvement, but it is. It's an incredible city. I just want it to become a mecca.
I do too.
For the world.
I do too. I think internationally we have an opportunity to, I could go deep on this and talk all day about the World Cup that's coming in 2026. Yep. And it's such an opportunity to showcase Dallas to the world. But there are challenges we see every day, like public safety, of course, our lack of public transportation, infrastructure challenges. Where are all these people going to stay? And these are all things that we've got to address as a city in anticipation of being on the world stage in a way we've never been before.
May is election season.
Yes,
right? You're in the
once again.
I know. And you're in the middle of campaigning at the moment. And I just want to know, tell me everything happening in District 1. Tell me what, the last several years since 2019, June of 2019 has been filled with.
Yep.
And your platform, talk to me about what you're dealing with at this point.
Well, so I got into public service. I've always kind of had, like a lot of people in public service, an intrinsic desire to serve. I started off in the military. That put me through college and actually brought me to Texas. And so I served in the military, got out, after 4 years, I did my time. And I'm a combat veteran now and very proud of that fact. And once I got out of the military, I ended up going to law school and then came here and started practicing law. And I was missing that kind of service aspect, And so I got involved with charity work in my district and ultimately opened my own law firm, started a business, and eventually led me to public service again. And so I love it. It's the greatest honor of my life to be able to serve my constituents, the 90,000 people that live in District 1, and then the city beyond that. The interesting thing is in 2019, right when we got elected, and I was elected the same year as Mayor Johnson and Karen Mendelson and a lot of other folks, very quickly, as you remember, we experienced COVID.
That's right.
It was a crazy first term for a lot of us.
That's
and
right.
we were still trying to figure out the job. And then we get hit with COVID.
Yep.
And you can't pick and choose when you get elected and what happens during that time. But it was incredibly challenging. And then on top of that, there was the killing of George Floyd
Yep.
and the aftermath of public safety that Dallas experienced. We had the whole defund the police narrative, which was so prevalent in politics.
That's right.
And on top of that, all the other challenges of the city that we just deal with on a day-to-day basis, like housing reform and infrastructure and just the stuff that keeps the city running, keeping our parks and libraries operational. So I'm in my fourth and final term. Hopefully no dramatics like that in the last term.
Yeah.
But you can't ever count on it.
I know we can't.
We want to but what I found in 6 years now is it doesn't matter in my district. I have extreme wealth in my district and I have extreme poverty and I have everything in between.
Yep.
A lot of families there, very, very heavily populated with Hispanics. And it doesn't matter in my district if you're rich, poor, brown, black, or white. Everybody values public safety at the top of their list and infrastructure right there with it. So streets, roads, sidewalks. And so living by those core values of making that better on a daily basis is really what's important to staying in office and to doing the best job you can. So I look forward to doing that again.
And so in order to discuss things like pro-development, anti-development stances, I believe it can be a little archaic at times because I've thought, okay, if we do truly want a safe city, a city that is going to be growing into a mecca of the world, these are conversations that must be had, especially when you look at, housing affordability, parking reform. That's something that you're a big proponent of at this point.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, I mean, development is the key to our property taxes,
That's right.
which then pays for police, fire, streets, roads, libraries, parks, all the stuff we value. And so we've got to be reasonable about welcoming in development while still putting in protections for neighborhoods.
That's right.
and for those legacy neighborhoods that have been there so long.
Of course.
It's a balance, and you've got to be willing to engage in those conversations. One of those is housing reform. We are in a housing crisis in the city. And I've taken tough positions and I've created tough conversations that have made a lot of people uncomfortable. And it's put a target on my back, and it's brought in political opponents. But I'm okay with that because if we don't jump in and tackle it, Dallas is going to turn into San Francisco or Seattle because our housing prices are so high. People won't be able to live here. Our workforce won't be able to live here. Same with parking reform. But the challenge on that is I have jumped in so head first that I have also not been sensitive to the fear that it brings from people who are not quite ready for that. And who also don't have all the information that we sometimes have at City Hall. We're always playing like insider baseball, and we've got the studies, we've got the experts there. And for folks who might just hear about one thing I said in a whole lot of 5 hours of talking at City Hall, it can sound pretty scary. And I've got to do a better job of that, of communicating the whole picture when I'm jumping out in front on a controversial issue like housing reform.
So parking reform and the affordability. Talk to me about the specifics pertaining to these two particular issues.
Sure. Parking reform itself could be its own show. It is such a... All right, so here's I think a few examples of how our antiquated 1960s parking code is impacting businesses would be helpful. So I have not just one, but two coffee shops in one of my little neighborhoods called Elmwood, which is a great neighborhood, by the way, in District 1, and very cute neighborhood. The first coffee shop was not able to open because they have the antiquated parking code requiring one space for every 100 square feet in the business, including the kitchen area. So really, if you just want to come in and get a cup of coffee, great. But he had to provide something like 15 parking spaces or something ridiculous. And this is in an area that's already been designed as car-centric. It is tons of street parking, but because of the parking code, he couldn't count it. So you know what he had to do? He went to the Board of Adjustment. They refused his application. So what he had to do is pave his entire yard to park the cars there so that he could open his business. So we ended up harming the environment. You've now not got green space out there for people to sit, but his workers, who are the ones parking there all day, are now parking on the concrete in the house that's this old house in downtown Elmwood. Just down the street's another business. I think it's about 1,800 square foot, a little sandwich place. They can't get the proper CO to do, beer and wine or other things they want to do because of the parking code. The most extreme example, and the reason why I opened the parking code in August of 2019, was a very tragic story, actually. Just if you know where Bishop Arts is, where the streetcar stops at Bishop Arts, it's at the corner of Zhang and Davis. Okay, just southeast of that, there is a CVS, and beyond that, there's a vacant lot. The vacant lot was this historic-looking old building from the Art Deco era, 2-story, beautiful brick building, and some developers wanted to come in and do a boutique 12-room hotel there with a separate 2,500 square foot restaurant with a pool cabana, like very California, right? And it was just sounded great. They're going to restore the building, the little boutique hotel. Well, the parking code required them to park each room, so that's 12 rooms, plus fully park the restaurant, which is 25 spaces. So 37 spaces on a third of an acre for this little boutique hotel. Absolutely no way that was going to work. In the time it took to get the variance needed to do this, some, we believe, homeless folks moved into the building, set fire, and burned it down. So it never happened. That's exactly why those cases, we need to update the parking code so that it's more relevant to today's lifestyle. The parking ratios were created by bureaucrats. They're still enforced by bureaucrats 70 years later. Why is that what we're guided by versus what the market dictates and what insurance dictates? Because some of these insurance and for these different properties are going to require parking. Financing, the financiers are actually some of the most conservative on wanting additional parking. In my opinion, and I think we're aligned on this, is you let the market drive it, and then you put in the protections necessary for the neighborhoods. I led out front on advocating for removing parking minimums, and then instilling protections for neighborhoods like those around Bishop Arts, like where I live, or Laurel Greenville. One of the benefits of eliminating minimums is the simplification of the permit process at the permit office. City staff has said, a dozen times now, that 60 to 70% of all time spent at the permit office is on parking code, anticipating that, or analyzing the parking code, and then actually like putting it into paper. The parking code is way overly complicated. If we could simplify it, even if there's still some requirements, imagine the efficiency we could get in that office that would then translate to, it wouldn't take so long for a developer to build a house. Maybe it'll be less expensive for someone to buy it.
These parking costs are anywhere from $20,000 to $50,000 per space. So then inherently, I think, yes, so then rent costs are being driven up substantially. But again, I always kind of go back to the free market economic space of allow the market to dictate it and the people who are industry experts to determine that.
Versus someone who works at City Hall who is well-intended but not trained in any of that, world. You mentioned affordability for a second on parking spaces, and you're right. On the wrapped product where there's parking in the middle and you've had to drive up like a concrete ramp like the one here in your building, or even surface lots cost for a surface space is $8,000 to $12,000. It gets really expensive in the $50,000 range when you've got to bury parking. That cost is not just eaten by the developer. It's passed on to the tenants.
Of course.
So if we want to focus on housing affordability, we've got to think about that. The parking code as it's written today in base zoning, requires one parking space for every bedroom. So if I'm a single parent and I'm a divorced parent and I have an apartment with a bedroom for my kids and one for myself, I have to have 2 parking spaces, or they have to build 2 parking spaces for me, even though I have one car. It makes no sense. And that is, systemic across the city where that's happening. So we need to provide a little more flexibility for the market and hopefully ease the cost down a little bit.
Let's toggle over a little bit to public safety, because I know
Right.
that
Mhm.
that's vital and the most important topic, right, of conversation for your constituents. And talk to me a little bit about your history surrounding the support of the police and your ideals pertaining to this, if you could.
Absolutely. Well, I've been very fortunate to have a good relationship with all of our previous police
Mhm.
chiefs. I do remember some of the challenges during the George Floyd protests that we had in Dallas, and definitely learned, just how tough their job is
Mhm.
throughout that process.
Mhm.
Uh, we have, neighborhood police officers in all neighborhoods, including my own. I work with them on a regular basis, and we just tackle issues as they come up. Every year I have supported fully funding the police. Um, and I've been very fortunate in my campaigns to have endorsements and support from the police associations.
And that for me is something that speaks volumes, because I know that you've come under a little bit of attack saying, "Oh, he's voted to defund the police."
Oh, happy to talk about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
please, if you would.
sure.
Just
So there was a vote in, I think it was say 2020 on the budget, where several council members um, reallocated some of the overtime funds,
7 million.
7 million, thank
Mhm.
you, to other public safety items. Now,
Mhm.
there was that year. This is the piece that's often left out of the media stories.
Mhm.
There was still an increase of $8 million in the police budget,
Mhm.
and all of that 7 million that was reallocated was put into other types of public safety endeavors, such as lighting, moving civilian jobs over, stuff like that. When Chief Garcia came on, he put in a lot more for checks and balances on the overtime.
Mhm.
Before his time, we had really millions of dollars in overtime that was not accounted for. There was no supervisor signing off on it. In some cases, no records. And DPD had been given a pass on that because they're DPD. If it
Mhm.
had been any other department, all of us on council would have been eviscerating them. And I started to realize this, that we've got to hold DPD as accountable for their checks and balances and their accounting, just like any other department.
Mhm.
So my feeling was, and my goal at that time was to hold the money over here,
Mhm.
have them come back mid-year when we have sales tax additional revenues coming in, and then we allocate more money to them, like we're always going to do, because all of us want police when we call for
Mhm.
them.
Moving forward, I know, no one at council supported propositions ST&U, and I know that there was a lot of movement that you all had surrounding uh, the, the opposition to them. So now 2 of the 3 passed, right? So specifically relating to Prop U. Now we have to ensure that we have 4,000 police sworn in.
Mhm.
I understand the difficulties logistically to getting there. Would you be willing to place your signature and write a letter to Kim Tolbert supporting actually devising a third party audit or recommendation about what constitutes excess or additional revenue to support this implementation and adherence to what is now law?
I think what especially Proposition U showed us is public safety is a real issue for
Mhm.
most voters,
Mhm.
and they take it seriously, and they want to see more visible presence of
Mhm.
police officers. Um, I'm open to any type of third party audit of the
Mhm.
city,
Mhm.
because I think it's good to be audited. I don't
Mhm.
think we get audited enough. And as you know, I chair the Government Performance Financial Management Committee, and on that committee, we actually have our internal audit, which is constantly providing stuff like, we learned that there were some missing weapons from the marshal's office
Mhm.
recently. So these kinds of things I think are important. I think third party audits are even more important. Um, I hate to give you a political answer on this and not a concrete one, but I'd want to see what the letter said.
Mhm.
The concept, though, seems reasonable.
Okay. And then what about even their pay? Their pay being competitive? Because that commissioned a third party
Mhm.
study on police pay to ensure competitive salaries. There's been no movement. And do you have any insight as to why it's stalled?
I mean, we are contractually obligated and are bound by the state as
Mhm.
well on on sticking with the meet and confer agreement. So I think that any movement in salaries should be worked with the associations, Dallas Police Association. Also got to go to the Dallas Firefighter Association, and then the other ones too, and get them to be on board with any salary adjustments. Because right now we can't legally change that without going back to the table and reopening those discussions. So it's got to start there. So for me, that's a non-starter until we reopen meet and confer again.
And so kind of back over to the allocation of the funding. Are you willing to meet with your other council persons who are working with you, adhering to the law now, in actually ensuring that we have enough bodies present?
It's not a yes or no answer, and here's why. I go back to the meet and confer agreement. By us setting a budget to hire a certain amount of officers, by us changing salaries, anything that's going to take us away from the meet and confer agreement is going to cause problems for us legally with the state and with those officers. So we're in a legal hurdle either way here because of this charter amendment and the passage of it. So what the city's doing, and I think needs to do better is try its best to meet those the intent of Proposition U by hiring as many officers as we can and keeping them on the force without violating what we're contractually obligated to do already.
I understand that. I just would think that since it's now law, that there would be a lot more movement that had been made at this point.
Well, both propositions S and U, without I don't want to argue about them because it is what it is. But I will tell you, both of them, the passage of both, and the same with the marijuana one, right? Is it is contradictory to a law. Proposition S and U are, at least in our belief, contradictory to contracts that we're into, and the Proposition S about the waiver of sovereign immunity is contradictory to state law. And so it puts us in this weird situation where we're actually just spending a lot of taxpayer money on lawyers. We're doing that for the marijuana amendment as well. But for me, at least, and I can't speak for all my colleagues on this, I still think we need to try to meet the intent of at least Proposition U and hiring as many police officers as possible and keeping them. And that's a winner for all of us. Everybody wants that.
What about DART? Where are you falling on DART these days?
As far as funding DART, I support funding DART. It's, if you and I talked about at the very beginning, us being a world-class city, and a world-class city has excellent public transportation. So someone mentioned this quote one time, and I can't remember who it is, but it's a city has a world-class public transportation, not when everyone has access, but when everyone chooses to use it. So when the rich people who have cars would rather use public transit, you know that your city's really made it.
Yes. And how do you think we can do a better job in public transportation?
Well, we need to fully fund it, from the sales tax penny that it has. And then secondly, I think the lowest hanging fruit is going back to parking. All of the underparked DART parking lots throughout the city that could have density on it. It's the perfect place for density. Most of them are not near residential. There's some exceptions. But a lot of them are just kind of out in different areas. Like Westmoreland is a good example. That's the end of the red line. And it's got factories around it and parking lots. That's a perfect place for density where you can put the workforce. They can jump on the train and go to downtown and work if they choose. And they don't have to worry about parking. They don't congest our roads because they're on the train that we've already built for them. So it's not building new lines necessarily right now. We don't have the money for that. But it's using what's already there and actually putting the density there away from the neighborhoods. Right now, DART is affordable for some people. And certainly the only way some people can get around. And so I think it is a necessary part of our infrastructure in the city. Now, granted, there are parts of the city you're only going to be able to drive to. And that's going to probably always be the case.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of places, especially in our core, where we should be continuing to invest in it. For example, the streetcar. There's the Oak Cliff streetcar right now that's part of the streetcar master plan, which is proposed to take it around, ends right now by the Union Station. But the The plan is to take it around through downtown, connect it to in some way to the M line trolley, where people would switch trains at that point, but enabling people to move through downtown more easily than they are right now.
And I'm going to kind of move over to something that I believe, and I do know for sure that your constituents have expressed questions about. So right now, I know that you are, and again, if you're not comfortable talking about it, I understand, but you're currently being investigated by the Texas Ethics Commission regarding some of the expense reporting, right, from your expenditures. What is your response to these allegations, and do you believe this investigation will impact your reelection campaign?
The quick answer is no, I don't.
Okay.
The second answer is that these two allegations, and we can talk about them, are both really for clerical errors in the reporting.
Yep.
They're not for anything wrong with the actual items. But the inflammatory part of it is that I was accused, basically it points out that I spent money in a bar and that I spent money at a bathhouse. If the issues that were pointed out is that these were gay establishments. I'm openly gay. I go to these places.
Yeah.
If it had been King Spa in Dallas for the spa bathhouse, it wouldn't have been an issue. If it had been the Old Monk as a bar in Dallas, it wouldn't have been an issue. In fact, that is on my expense report. So the issue that was brought up to me and what I think my constituents see from this is that someone trying to make it an issue that I went to a gay establishment, which I've never had that come up in any political discussion before, and I don't think it's relevant.
So why are you being investigated? Where did they find merit in?
It was a clerical error on how what I called it on the report, which was I think instead of calling it like a food and beverage expense, I called it like admission or something of that nature. Yeah, it was really just that, and there's not really a punishment or anything once it gets found out, other than I've got to correct the report.
Got it.
Which we're already prepared to do, because I do admit that there were, on a report with. So I treat my campaign account, and this, first of all, let's point out this is not city funds; this is campaign funds.
Yep.
I treat my campaign like I treat a business. If I'm spending campaign funds, then there should be some benefit to the campaign from that.
Yep.
So in both situations, these two particular instances, I was with donors, and we were going to establishments. So.
Okay. Well, that's good to know that you do not believe that this will impact your campaign at all. That's great to hear, actually.
Well, I hope not. If voters have a problem with me going to a gay establishment, they probably have an issue with me as a candidate.
I mean, I would seriously doubt that. I mean, I would doubt that. But
I don't think it's an issue like people's sexuality is too much. For a very small percentage of voters, maybe. For most of my voters in District 1, they care about the issues. What am I doing to tackle crime? What am I doing to support the police? What am I doing to ensure housing affordability, fix their streets and roads? Sometimes it's a very just particular issue, like they're speeding on my street. I want it to stop. I have people that will vote for me or vote against me just based on, I ran into one guy, he didn't like my vote on Reverchon Park, which is not even in my district, and it was a vote we made back in 2019. And I'm like, really? And he said, yes, I've never forgave you for that. And I'm like, okay, well, we have to sometimes, you got to put pen to paper and make a decision that's not popular to somebody.
Of course.
So a lot of times it's very specific. Most of the time, though, it's more general, broad issues.
Yeah.
And it's not like what I've spent at or where I went during the campaign trail. I mean, that was a inflammatory thing brought up by somebody doing a inflammatory video.
Did people contact you before they brought that to light? Did they say, "Hey, we found this, and it's raised concern"?
No.
Okay, got it. Yeah, and again, back to kind of what you and I had talked about. Even though you and I don't always see eye to eye on how to proceed in some manners, having the conversation and allowing that dialogue to take place perhaps beforehand, right? Before any of it hits the head. I think that is missing in society.
I think so too. Like if you want to sit down at the table and actually make change, this is what I've found in my district for sure. The people who are hyper engaged, who are actually trying to develop the zoning, our conservation district.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was very lucky in my district to be very fortunate to be one of the only conservation district that's passed in 13 years in the city, the only new one in District 1. I was happy to be part of that process. And the neighbors who get in the weeds on that kind of stuff, I've got great relationships with them.
Yep.
My relationships that are challenging to me, and I wish it could be better, are the ones who just blast me on social media, or instead of actually like trying to call me use 311, get their alley fixed, they'll just put something on social media.
I see.
And that's fine. Like we could still work together.
Yeah.
It's just makes for a more complicated situation sometimes because I've got to also deal with all that hype that comes with it instead of just sitting down and helping you with your problem.
Yeah. Tell me about this Forward Dallas. Even I think you've made some remarks about the Pepper Square development. I mean, I know that that's not in your district, but why are people so upset with your stance on, I guess, Forward Dallas and affordable housing? What is happening there?
Well, what's interesting that I was painted by a few people, mostly on social media again, as sort of like the poster child for densifying the host city.
Got it.
At the end of the day, and I do want to come back to that because I do believe we need some general density in Dallas. So I'm not trying to skate that or shove that to the side. But at the end of the day, I ended up voting with someone who's pretty much on the opposite side, or at least seen that on social media, which is Paul Ridley. We actually worked together on the compromise vote that happened at the end. We need land use reform in the city in order to move out of what has been there, for the last 30 years. And for us to actually have the environmental justice reform, which we desperately needed for neighborhoods like Joppy and Floral Farms, who were redlined and factories were put into their areas. Without Forward Dallas, we would never actually get those environmental reforms we needed so bad from the days of redlining. It cleaned up a lot of zoning or a lot of land use guidance in the different neighborhoods as well. Now, what's different about my district than other districts, and you've said this before, that it's not a one size fits all. I agree with that, is I live in an area that already has general density. If you walk through Lake Cliff Historic District by Lake Cliff Park, or one of the gems of historic districts in the whole city, Winnetka Heights, these areas you could be walking down one block and you have single family home. 2 doors down, there's a sixplex, and it looks just like the single family home. When I got to talking to my neighbors about what their concerns were with Forward Dallas and with general density, the concern is not necessarily, it's usually not, oh, I don't want a duplex there or a triplex there. It's, I don't want this big ugly box thing, that like a cereal box construction like we're seeing in Bishop Arts. It's more so the design, the setbacks, where the cars are going to go, these things that can be regulated through code. And for me, if I had not supported the version of Forward Dallas that I supported, it would have made a lot of our existing stock, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, non-conforming, meaning like in neighborhoods like my own Kid Springs, if a duplex was torn down, without Forward Dallas, they'd have to build a single family home in its place. We'd lose a whole residence for someone if we didn't modernize the code. So I had to, and I will continue to be an advocate for general density where appropriate. And Forward Dallas helped us do that.
Is there anything else, Chad, that you want to add to this interview, topics you want to cover that we haven't touched upon that you believe are meaningful?
No, I think you've done a great job on the questions. I just enjoy having this conversation where we can dig into the issues and you don't hold the punches back. I'm happy to come back anytime. Seriously. Yeah. No, if anytime you want to, tackle the hard issues, we should do that. And especially we get closer to election day too.
Absolutely. And I wish you luck. I wish you luck.
Thank you.
In this running.
Thank you.
Yeah. And again, it's always a pleasure to have you here, Chad.
Great being here as well. Have a good spring break.
Thank you. You as well. So Chad did not shy away from the tough questions in the studio, but how does he handle the pressure of picking his favorite cup of coffee or choosing his go-to breakfast at Oddfellows? Let's switch things up and hit the streets of Oak Cliff to check out some of his favorite spots. Stick around, you won't want to miss this.
Isn't this cute? It's shaman, and everything on the menu is fantastic. So the Avena is Avena, is that how you say it?
Avena.
Avena is really good. That's what I'm getting. And it's one of the lighter things on the menu. But really, anything's good.
Avocado beef. Ooh, power bowl. Ooh. Panqueques de elote. Oh my gosh. So this is legitimate.
Well, and
So
then,
this is,
and then they have for happy hours from 4 to 7 Monday through Friday, $10 palomas, which are my favorites.
Oh
ranch water
my
margaritas.
I
don't
love
know
the
what
ranch waters.
What's a brujo?
brujo, it's like, well, I don't know what it is here. It means witch, like a male witch.
Oh.
But I don't know what,
Okay.
yeah, but I don't know what the
We can
drink
find out.
means.
We can find out what that is. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, omelet, eggs with quesito, served as house salad, beef tenderloin, chorizo.
I've had the chorizo omelet before. It's very
It's
heavy,
good.
but it's fantastic. Okay.
They have fideo. Okay, here's the thing. I'm not gonna eat all the fideo, but I'm gonna order that just to see how it is.
I don't even see it. Where is it?
Fideo up here.
Oh, at the top.
My mom used to make the best fideo.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. And so that's why I'm like, I just want to see how good it is.
Let's get that. I will get this. So I'm doing the Avena. And I want one more of these teas, please.
May I have one of these teas? And then may I also try some fideo?
Time I drank it way too soon and
Yeah, you can tell it needs to steep.
Yeah, it needs to steep.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's done so well
I
here.
just want to smell it.
You're gonna love it. It's worth coming back here for this alone. If you like
It
teas.
kind of smells like horchata,
Done?
doesn't it? Well, because of like the cinnamon and the horchata, but that's the same, like those, yeah, the same flavor.
Looks like chorizo.
Oh, it's good. This is chorizo with beans, and then it looks like some cheese, of course, jalapeno. This is good.
That's fantastic.
That's so good. The fideo. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, if you were hungry, I think you're
Oh my
covered.
gosh, I was hungry. And so now I'm just gonna, I think, pick from a few things. Oh, that's so good. Fideo. It's like a tomato base with, I don't know if you can see the pasta, with some pasta. And then sometimes people will put different kinds of protein in it. But this has avocado. It's so good. And the magic is in the base of the soup. And they have a really good one.
So it's made
Yeah.
perfectly, just like,
You have to have some.
so your mother made that, right? What do I want to try?
Anything. Have
I'm
any
gonna have
of
a bite
it.
of your omelet.
Definitely. See, and I did egg whites.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I've had this before, but not with egg whites.
Yeah, you said it was heavy, and I thought,
Oh.
well, I want the chorizo, but I really want the egg.
Really good.
It's good.
Really good. And it's balanced out by the salad, I'm sure. What'll help with that. This place is really popular in the district, as you can imagine.
Oh. Well, of course. It's a, what is it, a Tuesday?
It's a Tuesday, and yeah, it is lunchtime. But when we got in here at like 11:30, it was even more packed because it was, kind of that brunch,
Of course.
lunch
Yes.
switchover crowd.
That'd be great. Oh, it doesn't even need the honey.
It doesn't, does it? No, I like it really sweet, but this is the best cinnamon tea I've ever had. And I don't say that lightly. It's really good. So a lot of this is a really interesting
Oh, this is
neighborhood
cute. Yeah.
it's Bishop Arts neighborhood. And what drives people crazy in Oak Cliff when it comes to overdevelopment is to see what's happened to this neighborhood. You know, this is a typical Bishop Arts, or the typical street in Bishop Arts, where you see the development on one side, and then you can see up ahead where there's these large 3-story looking townhomes, which it was zoned for.
Are these townhomes or apartments?
Those, I believe, are townhomes.
Got it.
And then you've got you're going to go straight all the way through that stoplight up there. You can see, you know, the homes that are still here. And so there's a fear, justifiable fear, that we're going to lose all this traditional housing stock for apartments in the neighborhood. But then you can see there's a duplex right there.
Yeah.
And you've got some existing, there's another one. And these have been around since before any of us lived in the neighborhood. And then you've got single family homes up here. So we have a neighborhood association that has reformed over here to try to help manage this density that we're experiencing. This was all zoned prior to my time, prior to Scott Grigg's time, my predecessor's time. It's been zoned this way. It got upzoned, which has now encouraged the density that's coming. This is a multifamily home.
Yeah.
There are, I believe, at least 4 units in there.
Seriously.
And it is very compatible with the neighborhood.
Of course.
And beautiful. What I believe is a single family home here. And then you've got a single family home here. You're walking down the street, you wouldn't even notice it unless you're looking for it, because they're built appropriate to the scale of the neighborhood. This is owned by my friend Carlos de la Fuente.
Aww.
So this is where you come for your piñatas. That's the leftovers from the Mardi Gras parade over there. Birthday parties. St. Patrick's Day is coming up.
Yeah.
And then Easter. Look at this. Look at this preparation for Easter right here.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't that great?
Oh my gosh. People actually made these? These are all stuffed with real confetti for Easter. Okay. That's amazing. ABC party.
ABC party on Davis Street.
On Davis Street. Oh my gosh.
Some really cute little kid shirts in here.
Look at the little loteria. Oh my gosh.
I'm not going to get the eggs because they will end up all over my house. On Easter, I'm going to get the eggs. They cute?
Oh my gosh. Oh, the little tangelos.
Little limes, lemons, raspberries.
And people come here and buy, clearly that's why they're still here. And honey, mangoes, eggs. May I have one pineapple, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
And this, honestly, these oranges are better than what you're going to get
Of course.
at most grocery stores.
No. Todo bien. Okay, gracias. Para ti también.
The Coombs Creek Trail is down there. This is just, really beautiful part of Kessler Park.
Look at that.
Great old housing stock.
Edgefield and Kessler. Okay.
Edgefield and Kessler Parkway. And so we'll take the stairs up.
Oh, these are the Kessler steps.
These are famous. So this was controversial to open these. City hasn't had an easement. You could see the remnants of the old stairs.
But it's so nice.
The neighbors love it. It connects this neighborhood, which otherwise is on the cliff up here, top of a hill, has trouble. They have to go all the way around to get down here, like probably almost a mile to get around. This one they usually have working. They'll probably get it working now that it's spring.
Yep.
So then you come up here and now you're on Canterbury Court, which is one of the most famous streets in Kessler. It's like a kind of a rounded street. There's a lot of beautiful homes up here.
Yeah.
Very historic.
The character, I know. I know, it's perfect. He's like right in front of his sign.
Oh, yeah.
But it is. And you know what I like about this area? It does not appear that many of these homes have been ripped down.
No, they're long established homes. It is a conservation district in Kessler Park. And so if you did take a home down, you'd have to rebuild to some similar standards.
Yeah. I wish Highland Park had that.
Yeah. Hey, what's going on? Hey, how are you? We're just checking out the Kessler. Oh no, you're good. Checking out the Kessler steps and this whole thing. So.
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, we're trying to help.
Well, shall we go to Oddfellows?
Yeah.
Let's
yeah.
do it.
It's beautiful. Thank you for showing us this. I've never been.
That's just a little secret gem in the neighborhood.
You are proud of where you're from.
Oh, 100%.
And it's just so beautiful to see. And I told her, I said, I wish more city council people were like this, who just had the energy to showcase.
Well, thanks for giving me the opportunity
Yes.
because, we're probably showing places to people that have never even been here before.
Correct.
A lot of people have been to Bishop Arts, but actually getting out of the little comfort zone of Bishop Arts and going to Jefferson. I wish our Western store had been open because I think it's a gem. But the Kessler Steps, I mean, those kind of like little things, if you're not a local, a lot of people don't even know about. And what's really great about I love my district, one of the many things that I love is that we do have the extreme wealth. We have poverty, we have everything in between. And everybody pretty much coexists together pretty well. Like, you can walk around the Bishop Arts or Jefferson and you see people from every age, every gender, socioeconomic background. You see same-sex couples, you see couples of different, ethnic backgrounds. I mean, it's just, no one cares. Everyone's just do you, just do you. It's oh my God, look at this coming.
What's that? Fremosa. Oh. Is it Fremosas?
Did someone else have one?
No.
The marshmallow?
But that's okay, you could give it to her. There's no alcohol in there.
Take it.
It's refreshing. No, they're both delicious. They're both delicious.
Cheers.
Cheers. That looks incredible.